Hi, everyone, and welcome to the #1 podcast for everything iPhone and iPad. Today we're talking all about the iPad mini design and the iPhone 5 timeline. This is the iMore Show.
It's August 15th, 2012, and I'm your host, Georgia from iMore, and also joining us is Mr. Seth Clifford, the CIO of Nickelfish, and also the co-host of Iterate. Hello, Seth.
How you doing?
I am well. I'm well. I've got a little bit of a hair problem, but besides that, I'm good.
Yeah, other than that, you look okay.
You know. Also, when he is not on Mac Break Weekly, is the editor-in-chief of iMore, Rene.
It's like a guy can't stray anymore.
We notice.
Georgia, I can't look pretty, so I can't sound pretty, so all I'm going to do is stand here and not fall down. How's that?
I like the hairdo. I like the little tiny tuft that you have.
Is it a faux hawk? I don't know if it's a faux hawk yet.
It's not a faux hawk yet. It's kind of cute, though.
Okay.
I like that. So, Rene, you have been doing the rounds.
No, like I said, I only strayed once. I went on Leo Laporte. I mean, he's the godfather of podcasting. If he asks, you show up. It's like if the president asks you to serve. It doesn't matter what party. It doesn't matter what time. It doesn't matter what job. You show up and serve.
He is the master.
Yep.
Absolutely smooth.
Yes. He is the well-aged Scotch of podcasting.
Oh, yes. Yes, for sure.
I had to translate it to Seth terms.
I got it. I got it loud and clear.
Nice.
Well, I may not be as smooth as him, but I'm going to try to do my best to keep this show flowing through because we do have some awesome stuff. All iPad mini info.
We have some breaking news, though.
Tell me.
The Wall Street Journal has just reported that Apple is in negotiations with cable companies to provide some sort of streaming video service. And I knew the minute I read that the actual story was going to say that it's going nowhere. And sure enough, a column inch down, it says that it's going nowhere. But Apple might be more willing to do things the cable companies' way than they ever have been in the past, which is either good or disturbing.
Yeah, what does that mean, Rene?
Well, I mean, Steve Jobs did this famous interview at the D8 conference with Walt Mossberg and Kara Swisher, where he explained how hard it is to go to market with television because, even like the phone was hard and all he had to do was deal with AT&T and eventually Verizon, and Sprint now. But there's so many regional cable companies, there are legal monopolies, there's satellite companies. It's really hard to make a solution that would work great for users and, cleave to the needs of all these petty fiefdoms and bureaucrats. So Apple was trying to do things on their own, and that hasn't worked. And I don't know if this will work, but it sounds like they're negotiating so they can show you, maybe like instead of buying the crappy satellite box or the crappy cable box, you'll be able to buy an Apple box that'll also do your cable TV channels.
Would it be any more difficult, though, than it was for the music industry?
Yeah, well, because the music industry, the cable industry they're so entwined now. I mean, the Comcast owns, I think it's NBC, is it, Seth? Is that the right one?
Yes, correct.
And they have like a total control over getting that content to you. And it's ludicrous. Like you can buy an HBO Go app for your iPad, but you still have to have the cable subscription and prove that you're a member. And they're just doing everything they can to fight the future, no matter how ridiculous historically that's proven to be. And I don't know if it's going to go anywhere, but it sounds like Apple is at least talking to them.
Well, who knows? It's better than nothing. At least it's a chance, because I would love to be able to get all my TV the way that I get my music.
Yeah, no, me too.
That would just be perfect for me. Let me give you my money.
Please.
Well, let's head down to the iPad mini. Rene, tell me, mini, how mini?
So the big news this week about the iPad mini is that we published what we knew about how it would look. And I know Seth's already been cracking wise about this on Twitter, so I want to engage him as soon as possible. But we heard some information about this a while ago, but we like to, be really sure and check things and do a lot of work on them. So it was actually very interesting. MG Siegler of TechCrunch got together a little Branch. It's a new service called Branch, and he had myself and Mark Gurman and Seth Weintraub and Matthew Panzarino and a bunch of other techies talking about the iPad mini, and Seth Weintraub dropped a little nugget about the bezel, which I'd heard about as well. So I was kind of curious. I started looking into it some more. And then last night he posted a mock-up of what he'd heard about the iPad mini bezel. And I took that as the all clear sign that we could post too. So I put together what I knew about it and put it out. And then right after that, John Gruber did. So, I mean, that's the history of the posting right there. And what it turns out is that the iPad mini isn't just a shrunken down iPad. It isn't the same proportions. It is narrower than that. It's like the iPhone is a different shape than the iPad. This shape is somewhere in between. If you shrank down an iPad to the same size, it'd be wider than this. If you blew up an iPod Touch, it'd be narrower even than this. It's kind of in between. And to do that, it's got a very narrow bezel on the sides. And some people are freaking out saying, oh, you won't be able to hold it by the bezel. You'll trigger touches. But that's the case with your iPhone now. Apple kind of figures that this is so light and so thin. I mean, it is literally iPod Touch thin, which is ridiculous. I'm afraid I'd break it in half just picking the thing up. It's so thin. And it'll be so light that I don't think it'll be a problem at all.
So it's going to be thinner. How are they even going to fit everything into it that they need in order to have a similar performance as the iPad?
Well, I mean, the iPod...
Or are we going to be losing stuff from this?
The iPod Touch is already... I'm going to bring it up, the picture, in a second. It's just not working right now. The iPod Touch already is that...
You need to watermark that, by the way, Rene.
Yeah.
Watermark.
Well, it's got our website all over it, but I'll do that too. The iPod Touch is already that thin. Apple has shown that they can make... I mean, granted, the iPod Touch doesn't have a great camera.
But it's also smaller. Like, the iPad mini is going to be much larger than the Touch, similar in price scheme, but much smaller than the Touch. And it's going to be so thin. I'm just like, I don't know. I'm going to break it. That's
what I thought. I mean, but I'm sure it's going to have a strong unibody frame on it, but it's ridiculous. At that size, it's ridiculously thin. It is 1/3 thinner than a Nexus 7. If you're familiar with the Android Nexus 7 tablet, it's thinner by a significant amount than that, and much lighter. John Gruber did the math on the weight, and I'll just read to you what he had. So if a Nexus or an Amazon Kindle 3G, no, let me go back. So the Nexus 7 is 340 grams. This would be 265 grams, so substantially lighter as well.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
It's pretty crazy.
And so if I look at the mock-up, it really is the Touch thinness. Like, it's, I don't know, it seems too thin to me. I don't know.
See if I can bring that up now. No, it's still not working. Darn it.
I'll put it into the chat room. You can't just swipe it. No, probably not.
What do you think, Seth? You were not so crazy about this on Twitter.
Yeah, I'm not sure I like that kind of look that the mock-ups are showing with the real thin side bezel. It looks more like a fat iPhone to me, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. Like, I'll be honest, I'm not crazy about the iPad having a bezel as large as it does, so it's not that it's smaller and hence I don't like it. It just looks weird to me, and that could be because it's new, and I've been kind of picturing something else in my head, as I've been kind of thinking through this, but something about the mock-ups that everybody's showing doesn't look right to me. It looks kind of weirdly imbalanced. Now, the weight stuff aside, I wonder, though, I mean, 7 inches it's bigger than a phone, so you really can't palm it, but it's not quite as big as the iPad. So you're not going to brush against it with your fingers on the side. I'm not sure about that. Like,
does the Nexus 7 trouble you with its smaller bezel?
No, it doesn't, because there's still a little bit there. Like, there's definitely seemingly more there than what these mock-ups all kind of seem to be coalescing around. So it doesn't feel like you're in any danger of doing that to me. But I actually, the one question I have, and maybe this has been brought up, so I apologize if it's redundant. Has anyone mentioned wireless connectivity with this thinness? Like, are we just flat out assuming it's not going to be cellular at all? It's just Wi-Fi only?
No, we aren't assuming either way on that yet.
Okay, because I haven't heard anybody really talk about that. And like I said, I may have missed that. But the only way I could see them getting something that thin in that kind of package is to drop battery. And to drop battery, you're dropping either screen or LTE.
Well, remember, the device is bigger and flatter than an iPhone or an iPod Touch, so the battery surface area is going to be much bigger. Not as big as an iPad, but fairly damn close. And it's not going to have to power a display anywhere near as hungry as an iPad 3 display.
Right. So
it's not going to be Retina.
Yeah,
that's what I mean. Yeah.
I believe they have a Retina and a non-Retina prototype, or at least they were considering it. If they want to hit the price really low, I don't think they're going to go Retina just because that panel is more expensive.
Right. It would be outrageous if they did, though. I mean, that would be the end.
Well, I mean, if you look at right now, it's the two options right now is an iPhone 3GS style display, which is better than the iPad 2. So it'll be better than the iPad 2 quality at its worst. If it goes to an iPhone 4 quality, it'll be better than an iPad 3. So your options right now are better than an iPad 2 or better than an iPad 3 in this device.
Yeah.
The aspect ratio, Rene.
Yes. What
is it going to be?
It's my understanding that it's 4:3, just like the existing iPad. Because it's running, basically, that's the huge difference. Some people were calling it a big iPod Touch, and that's exactly the wrong way of thinking about it. The Nexus 7 is much more a big iPod Touch because it's running mostly smartphone apps still. This is running iPad apps. It's running iPad OS, the iPad interface, not the iPhone interface. And that makes a huge difference. When Steve Jobs said that 7-inch tablets were terrible, he was predicating that on them running big smartphone apps and not the same class of apps that the iPad can run. And this will run those apps.
Yeah, I'm pretty impressed. I think that if they can get it, I don't know, how in the world are the other tablets going to compare to this? If they can hit the price mark and it's going to run programs with that, that's going to be amazing to see.
And Apple could theoretically sell a cajillion of these. I mean, even at $200, $250, even close to $300 for an iPad class device, I mean, that's going to be a pretty compelling holiday offering.
And the perfect time for that.
Yep.
Chris wrote a story, and and I'll ask you, Seth. Could Apple sell a $200 iPad mini, and how would investors react if they did?
I think they can pretty much do whatever they want at this point. I don't think anyone's going to complain with their track record. I think they can definitely sell a $200 iPad mini. I think they could take a bath on it if they wanted to and choke this market. That's, very, very early in its infancy. I mean, yeah, there's been 7-inch devices for a little while, but nothing has really taken off, with the kind of fervor that the iPad itself has. I mean, yeah, Kindle Fire has sold a lot. Nexus 7 is a great 7-inch tablet. But I think that I don't think anybody would argue, even if they took a loss. I think if they said, hey, we are losing a little bit on this, but it's a strategic play and we think it'll pay off. I think given the track record, given the amount of money they have banked and their confidence in the product, I don't think anybody would even bat an eye.
Rene?
Yes.
Would they be able to sell for profit at $200 price point?
I mean, it's an interesting question. There's profit and there's Apple profit. We know that, for example, the Amazon Kindle Fire is sold, I think it's like a 1% loss. Amazon actually loses money for every $200 Kindle Fire they sell.
So if we just buy a lot of Kindle Fires, they'll be out of business.
Well, I mean, it's a few cents, but yeah. I mean, if you as you approach the entropy level of the sun, the Nexus 7, Google sells pretty much at cost too. I mean, they're subsidizing a huge degree off that tablet. And the bill of goods for an iPod Touch now is about $130, $150, and they sell it for $200. So they make $50 to $80, $50 to $70 on an iPod Touch, 8 gigabytes. This should be
like 25%.
Yeah, 25 to 30%. Apple usually has much higher profits than that. But also, I mean, there'll be an 8 gigabyte version of this, but 8 gigabytes not very useful anymore. Most people are going to get 16 or 32 or 64, depending on what the options are. And those go up by $100, which starts, padding the profit margins quite a bit. And this is Apple under Tim Cook. And if anything, he has shown that he can produce stuff much lower than anybody else on the market.
Or would they just not care and do as Seth was kind of talking about? Because they can definitely bankroll a whole bunch of iPad minis just to put other companies out of business. Would they even do that? Apple hasn't really.
I think if the Kindle Fire had done spectacularly well, and if the Nexus 7 had done spectacularly well, I think Apple would feel more pressure on the price and maybe go for $200 or something very close to that. But those tablets really haven't done anything. I'm not saying that to be a jerk. They just really haven't done anything in the market. So I think that if Apple originally thought they might have more pressure, they don't anymore. So maybe, $250 around there is more reasonable at this point. They can charge more because no one else is forcing them to charge less.
No, they definitely can.
Do you think that it makes a difference between 200 and 250 people buying it or not?
I think there's a psychological boundary that when you hit $200, it's almost a no-brainer to buy things like a tablet.
Right. Especially if it's against the Kindle.
Yeah, I mean, it's just...
How much is a Kindle going for right now?
$199 for the Kindle Fire.
Jeez.
The book readers are cheaper, but they're not full tablets. They're just book readers. And the Nexus 7 is also $199.
Yeah. I think for that size, $199 is the price to beat. Now, they could definitely sell it at $249 because, the iPad definitely has a reputation that the other tablets don't, and, software and all the rest of it that goes with it. But I feel like the way that they came out really, really strong with the original iPad at $499, I feel like they could make money on this, but if they release this device, I feel like it has to be $199, not for any other reason than just so they can say, well, now they're all the same price. Which one are you actually going to pick? There's no argument on the price. They've extinguished that thought in people's minds, and now it's just a matter of, well, yeah, which one am I going to pick? Which one has the most bang for the buck if they're all the same?
I think that they would really, again, it would be a no-brainer for the competition unless you can, just do not like Apple for whatever reason that might be. You would buy a different product line, or I don't know if you're hoping to sync over all of your different devices, and I have no clue.
Well, Chris's point though is
that it's kind of like a foot in the door type of psychology, right? Once you decide that you're going to spend $200 for a tablet, and then you take a look at the different products, if the iPad mini really does show as well as what we expect it to, I don't know, an extra $50 would be a no-brainer. I think that a lot of people would just mock up. Really, if it has the battery power and of, say, 9 hours of what we, hope that it will still have.
Well, I think that Chris's point was different, though. I mean, we're all looking at it in terms of what we'd want to spend to buy it, and consumers want to spend the least possible. But Chris was talking about Apple shareholders, and especially institutional shareholders, and the idea that Apple would cut their margins significantly when they don't have to, he thought might cause a lot of anger in the investment community, and they would punish Apple stock, which is something that, Apple's primary duty is to serve their shareholders.
Yeah, but again, if the stock is going to go up, they're going to be happy anyways, so...
Well, you're assuming that shareholders are logical and that the markets follow some form of rhyme or reason, which historically has not been the case.
I think most probably are. Again,
Apple sold $1 gazillion dollars.
Yeah, but Apple is so stable.
No, absolutely not. I mean, they had a quarter. They exceeded their own predictions last quarter, but did not exceed predictions of people who have no idea how to make predictions, and the stock was heavily punished.
But so it's heavily punished over the long, again, short term, yes. Over the long term, no.
Well, that's a good point, but it is something that Apple's going to pay. I mean, they're
if you're looking on dumping stock really quickly, and you're someone that's trying to make a very quick changeover, even that Apple stock still is going to be an exceptionally stable bet, because a stock that fluctuates yet is always going up yet fluctuating. You can make a great amount of profit even in a short term. So I don't understand how, again.
Well, read the article. He lays out a pretty good. And again, he's not talking about Georgia buying 10 shares. He's talking about some big brokerage company who owns millions of shares and doesn't really understand the market. They just understand that they want Apple to make some arbitrary number of margin profit every quarter. I mean, Apple should be valued way more than it is. Apple is way undervalued compared to the valuations of Amazon and other companies, and Apple's consistent profits. But again, I'm not competent enough to speak to it, but it is a concern for Apple, maintaining margins, and if they want to get on the Dow, and if they want to keep their stock at a certain price, and on and on and on.
I still think that between Tim Cook and who is it, Oppenheimer, they can probably convince the stockholders that the long play here is worth the quarter hit.
It's possible,
and that's if it takes a quarter hit,
right?
Voodoo in the chat room is asking, would iPad mini cannibalize regular iPad sales? And so I think there's two important things there. One is that Apple is not targeting Amazon Kindle owners or Nexus 7 owners, because and again, I don't want to be a jerk, but that's an insignificant amount of people. Apple is targeting everyone who would have bought an iPad, but either it was too expensive or too big. They wanted something cheaper and lighter. So this takes away 2 barriers of entry. So they're looking at it as a way to expand their market, not hurt someone else's market. I mean, if they do that, great, but they don't want the 10 Nexus owners. They want the 10 million people who just didn't buy an iPad before. And Apple has historically shown, I mean, Georgia, you have an 11-inch Air. Maybe you would have bought a 13-inch Air for more money if Apple had offered it, but they would rather you buy that 11-inch Air than a not Apple product. And the iPod Mini took away from the classic original iPod, and Apple was fine with that too. And they've traditionally said that they would like to cannibalize themselves. If anybody's going to cannibalize Apple, they want to be the ones that do it.
Which I agree. I think that some people will buy. Again, if you have a certain amount of money, I think a lot of people will buy instead. So I think that some of their shares will definitely be cannibalized. They're the biggest competitors are to themselves.
Yeah.
So their biggest profits are also people that are going to be buying Apple products and people that want to have a tiny tablet. I guess they saw that would be a margin to deal with it. And I think a little bit of them always wants to stick it to the competition.
Yeah, I think
you can't say though Kindle and the Nexus and everything else. I think that, it does feel good to rule the roost. If I could take out a rival company, I would.
Well, I think it's also about the future. I mean, like, even if there's not a big share now, in a generation from now, maybe they'll have a good Nexus or a good Kindle, maybe 3 generations. Why fight a big battle against them in 2 years if they can kill them right now?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It makes great logical sense. They have the money to be able to do it. And as Seth said, they could undercut themselves. And yes, you're right. Maybe the stockholders would be a little bit upset. But in the end, the consumers are the ones that really pay the price for that because there wouldn't be as much competition to it. And Apple could relax and not have to worry as much.
Although they traditionally, I mean, they didn't have very much iPod competition at all, and they kept every year they put out a new iPod because they wanted you to buy one. They didn't want you to think, oh, I already got an iPod, I don't need to buy one. They're like, oh my god, a new iPod, I gotta buy the new one.
If they had competition with a really great speaker system, I might have better speakers on any.
They did. I mean, I think everyone had better speakers, and no one bought them anyway.
Well, think about this. Just in talking about the iPod, they are tremendously successful gifts around the holiday season. I can't see any reason why this, at that price point, wouldn't sell insane amounts. Just for that reason alone. Just people saying like, yeah, they've got an iPad. I'll get them this little one. Maybe they can take it on vacation or whatever. Like for whatever the rationale might be. If it's $199 or a little more than that, and the iPod Touch is around that same price, people are just going to buy these without even thinking. It's going to be silly.
In comparison to the Touch, I think, yeah, you're absolutely right, Seth. Like, geez, they're going to have to drop the price of the Touch, aren't they, Rene? Like, really?
Well,
a lot?
We have heard that there's still going to be an iPod Touch. Some people thought that if they put out an iPad Mini or whatever Apple calls it, iPad Air, whatever they call it, they would get rid of the iPod Touch. But we've heard they're keeping it, and they might update it so that it's more like the new iPhone with a 4-inch screen. But see, Apple does not believe that being smaller means being worse. They believe that smallness and portability are a feature. Like your smaller Air to you is a feature. You want as small a computer as possible. And yes, it's a little bit cheaper, but it's not half the price or anything. So
That's true. That's a good point.
Yeah, so I can easily see right now it's $130, $150 to make an iPod Touch, and they sell it for $200. If the iPad Mini is at $250, maybe the iPod Touch is still $200. Maybe it's $175 if the iPod Mini is. So the iPad Mini is $200. It'll be something small, and they'll say, if you want a great gaming machine you can put in your pocket, you get the iPod Touch. If you want a tablet that you can easily carry, like easily read in bed, you get the iPad Mini.
I could definitely see them doing $179 for it, but I could also see them doing like $149 for it because at this point, their economies as they build those things have got to be completely outrageous.
Well, yeah, well, $130, $150. The thing is, the new one probably couldn't. So if they make a new iPod Touch, it probably couldn't be that cheap. But if they keep the old one, or what were you gonna say, Josh? Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say exactly that. If they're going to upgrade, if they're going to have a bigger screen or a different screen, there's no way that they're going to be able to lower the price like by $50.
No, I was talking about if they kept that one around.
Yeah, for sure. I think that they could cut down.
Like the iPhone 3GS version of an iPod Touch.
Exactly.
Yeah, seriously.
And then not worry about doing it. It's not like they are under any pressure right now to upgrade the Touch.
I think they're going to do it just because eventually, like the games that you play on the 4S don't play as well on the iPod Touch because it's the equivalent of an iPhone 4. And if they go to an iPhone 5 that's even better, the games are going to start not running as well on older iPod Touch hardware.
But you're not going to buy a Touch to game if gaming is really what you want to do. You're going to give a Touch to your child because you don't want them to have a phone, or if you're really going to do it for exercising, you're going to get a Nano. So I don't think that that's going to be a huge issue. If you're a gamer, you're not using
I think they've got a huge gaming market on the Touch. It alone is one of the big. I mean, the iPod Touch in general is going down.
A lot of kids use a Touch. I don't think that they're going to care whether they have a Retina screen.
But it's not them. It's the developers. The developers don't want to support. I mean, I guess as much as possible, they want to be able to write that. They want to write as great a game as possible on the iPhone and just have it work on the iPod Touch, not have to worry about making a version that runs on crappier hardware.
Yeah, but if the 3GS is still around, what?
Yeah,
they abandoned product. They abandoned compatibility. I mean, like if you try to run one of those fast 3D, Infinity Blade kind of games on the 3GS, I don't even think it runs on the 3GS.
I know. I don't think that people can. If you're going to be playing Infinity Blade on the iPod Touch.
If you go to apple.com, it's positioned as a gaming machine. I don't think you can position it as a gaming machine and not support the latest games on your platform.
No,
Apple can do whatever they want. People will buy it.
Fair.
Maybe it becomes the casual gaming machine.
I don't see why not. I mean, if you keep the old iPod Touch around at 8 gigabytes, really cheap, and you have the new one that's more expensive, I think it's win-win for them.
Yeah, I don't think they're upgrading it this year. That's just my feeling on it, though. They have so much in play right now. And so, why they're going to have to split, like they're going to, with the iPad mini, with the phone, all their production lines are going to be completely spent. They throw the Touch as well onto a new production line.
And a new iPod Nano, and they're all going to have mini docks.
Yeah.
So you just wait.
I don't see how they're going to be able to do that.
You just wait.
Heads exploding.
Yeah.
Okay, we shall, I guess.
But Georgia, they have not updated the iPod Touch in 24 months. That's a long time. But the sales...
The sales aren't bad.
No, the sales are horrible for the Touch. The sales have gone way down for the iPod. The Touch is half the iPod line, and the iPod sales were significantly down. And they made absolutely no updates last year.
Yeah, I don't think that that's actually because I think that because most people will either, if they want small and portable, they're for say doing sports, they're going to go Nano, and if they're not, they're going to buy their phone. I don't need a Touch if I have my telephone. So it's really only the market for people that are going to want to use the tech on it without having it be also their telephone.
Yes.
Like Rene, you wouldn't have a Nano and
I have everything.
Touch. No, okay, if you were a regular person, would you have a Nano and have your phone? For what reason?
Well, Nano, I wouldn't have.
A touch,
you mean a Touch? Sorry. No, I mean like most people that you talk to, their use case for a Touch is only if they don't want an iPhone or they want to give something to their kids. It doesn't come with a contract.
Right, exactly. And kids are not going to really know the difference between an Infinity Blade on whatever. They're just happy.
Well, they'll know they can't get Infinity Blade, which, I mean, that starts to become a problem.
Again, they're not a strong market share for Apple.
Well, we'll see. Can we file this one away as we're going to disagree for 30 minutes?
Yeah, that sounds fair. So, Rene, talk to me iPhone 5.
No, I'm going to ask you guys. iPhone 5, we heard that Apple is... we heard originally Apple is doing the event on June 12th. That seems to have been borne out by...
September. Yeah?
September 12th. That seems to have been corroborated by almost everyone except for Apple at this point. And this week we also heard that pre-orders are going to go live the same day, which is unusual. I mean, last year they waited till the Friday. So the September 12th is a Wednesday. They waited till the Friday after the iPhone event to do pre-orders. And previous years, they've always waited a short amount of time, I believe. Doing it the same day is very aggressive, although it sounds like that's what they're planning. Does it really matter to you, Seth, when you can order your iPhone after Phil Schiller shows it to you?
No, I mean, it's exciting to do it as soon as he says, and it's available now, and everybody just dashes to a browser and goes bananas, but...
and the Apple site is down.
Well, it would be that night. It wouldn't be immediately after the event.
Yeah. No, I mean, I can wait a little while and process the information and stew about it and talk about it. This year's going to be weird for me. I was actually thinking about this earlier, because forgive me for going a little off topic, can you pre-order a a phone for another carrier and like switch everything over? Like, can Apple do that for you as part of a pre-order, or do you have to really jump through some hoops for
A
that?
regular pre-order, or are you talking about calling your business rep?
I'm asking like a general question. Like, if I were a regular person and I wanted to pre-order and I wanted to change carriers.
I think you could just pre-order on that carrier, but I don't think they could do any switching for you.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know how elaborately they tie in, but I think anything cross carrier is going to become a nightmare for you very quickly.
Kind of what I figured. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to digress.
Didn't answer my question yet, Seth.
What was your question? Are you going
to jump in pre-order? Are you going to is that nightmare of carrierhood going to? Oh, so you're going to switch carriers? Is that what you were trying to tell me there?
That's kind of what I'm getting at. Yeah.
Okay.
So I have to probably I would ordinarily pre-order if I was not switching, but this year I have to buy a phone for myself and one for my wife, and we are strapping life jackets on and jumping ship for calmer waters. So yeah, I probably won't pre-order. I'll probably have to go through a different channel and maybe call our business rep for that one.
Are the smoother waters with a giant red V on them that just drip LTE no matter where you go?
Yeah, kind of. If I listen, I got that Verizon iPad, and it's so solid everywhere I go. It's like, it's crazy.
I was just talking to someone who's asking me about, the differences between like switching to Verizon in comparison to staying with AT&T. So for you, your Verizon signal is much stronger, and that would be the main reason for you to go through all those hoops in order to jump.
Yeah, basically. I mean, I've been with AT&T for a couple of years, and the long and short of it is that it has peaks and valleys where it's great for a while, and then it's just unbearable. And we're kind of bottoming out in an unbearable part, and we both agreed that it's time to try something new. And I got the Verizon iPad in March, and I've been using it everywhere, and everywhere I need LTE. Even with one little bar, it's very, very usable. So it's kind of been like an experiment for me to see how it would go. And I think if that phone is even half as good, it's a no-brainer for me.
Rene, can you talk about the hoops that we do have to jump through? So I'm stuck in, my contract. I just got my 4S, and yes, I want to get the new phone. Am I going to have to buy out?
Well, you have more problems. I mean, you have a problem. No, you have a problem before you even get to that, because we also heard that the second wave of iPhone launches are going to be the first week of October, probably October 5th, which is the Friday. And 2 years ago, in 2010, Canada got the iPhone 4 significantly after AT&T got it in the US. I think it was almost a month. It was at least a couple of weeks to a month later. And last year we got it the same day, and who knows what's going to happen this year. I mean, so the best case scenario is we get it the same day as the US, September 21st. The worst case scenario is we're waiting until the first week of October before we even get our grubby little geeky hands on it.
That's fine, but I'm still stuck with my carrier, and I keep on buying phones. Though once I bit the bullet and spent the whole $700 on buying an unlocked phone. But in the end, I'm going to be beholden to my carrier for like a million years. Can they, it's just,
I don't even know. You bought your 4 outright. Your 4S was an upgrade.
I know.
Yeah, so.
I know. It's not pretty, Rene. It's not pretty.
And you're on a 3-year Canadian contract. Yeah, I have no answer for you.
Horrible.
You're going to have to pay a lot of money for an iPhone 5.
I don't like that either.
I'm just buying. I buy them every year.
I don't know which one I'm angrier at. I was angry when I spent the $700 on an unlocked phone, and I'm upset as well on being stuck with my carrier for 3 years in order to get a phone that's going to be subsidized. I don't know. I'm hoping that Apple at some point is like they have billions of dollars. Can't they help me subsidize my phone?
Yeah, because what they want to do is give it all to you. Well, like every year, Rogers offers me $100 to re-up with them, and every year I tell them to go stick it, and I buy it outright because I just don't have to deal with them. So to me, it's $700. Yeah, but
it's true. But you've stayed with Rogers for the entire time. You have not jumped ship.
No,
so
but I mean, I still don't have to worry. Yeah, I spend an extra $100 a year, but for me, it's worth it just to say, I can't use the language that I want to use on this podcast, but it's worth it for me to say that to Rogers, figuratively, just in spirit.
Seth, can I ask you, where are you with your contract? Are you going to have to pay the buyout to get out of your contract? Do you know?
Oh, yeah.
Are you in the middle of the plan right now? Okay.
It's going to cost me an arm and a leg. I really don't care.
It's painful.
Yeah, I'm done. I need to try something new.
Wow. That's huge if you're going to pay that, even though. And I think a lot of people are deciding in between what are they going to do, getting prepared for that wave. And Rene,
Yep.
Can I hope and pray that Canada is part of the first wave?
Yeah, I'm doing that. Otherwise, I'm driving to freaking New York again.
Which is kind of cool.
I'll go hang out with Seth in the line.
Yeah. Georgia,
Rene,
you have an unlocked phone though. Can't you just resell it to somebody easily?
No, her new one's on contract. It's locked to Fido.
I smashed 4. Smashed smithereens.
Yeah, why haven't you fixed that for yet? You're supposed to do that on video. The entire iMore nation is waiting to watch you try and DFU mode your way out of a screen repair.
I know, that's going to be really scary. I have it, it's all ready, but it's just, I'm just,
lazy.
I'm just going through the motions of trying to survive another day.
All right. Hashtag lazy.
Rene,
yes.
You have found out everything that there is to know about dock connectors.
Yes.
And so you went through what is going to happen with the new smaller dock connector. And you even did some mock-ups. Did you actually? They're very cute, the mock-ups.
Well, those aren't ours. I didn't do those. Those are by John, who's been doing a lot of concept art for us. And he just had fun with it. He put a mini display, a mini MagSafe on there just for fun.
I know. I loved it.
But yeah, so Apple, I think we broke that story back in February that Apple was switching to a smaller dock connector, and you can read the article.
What aren't you breaking right now, Rene?
It's so hot. Sorry, I'm losing focus because, like I said, my air conditioning is gone. It's like an oven in here. I'm trying not to. I had no sleep, and all right, yeah, fine. I'm taking.
Take your jacket off and relax.
Come
on, we're having fun. Right. You're among friends.
I'm gonna put an ice pack on my head next. I'll do it like I'm Tom from Tom and Jerry.
Drink some water. Don't faint on us, please. There we go.
So the dock connector now has 30 pins, and it's asymmetrical, so you can only plug it in one way or the t'other. TechCrunch said that they would switch to 19 pins. iLounge said 8 pins. 9to5Mac, Mark Gurman, Ace Reporter, deep dove into the iOS 6 Beta 4 code and found a reference to 9 pins. And then we started seeing some examples, some parts leak out that had 8 pins, but the ring around them was also a pin. So you have like basically the best of both worlds, 8 pins, but a 9th one. And it was double-sided, so you could plug it in either way. You no longer have to worry about which way you put your dock connector into.
Which is nice, because that is one of my pet peeves, is trying to figure out which side to dock connect.
Yep.
In the dark, kill me.
Which is like, some people were saying, why doesn't Apple just go to micro USB? The European Union has said Apple should go to micro USB, and the micro USB is not symmetrical either. You have to be careful about jamming that horrendous looking connection in one way or the other. But yeah, so some parts leaked out.
Name of the podcast.
And I decided to spend some time, and it's not easy to find out about dock connectors because they're under NDA with Apple. If you join the Apple dock connector program, you're not supposed to talk about Fight Club. But I found some older schematics. I forget, there's a website that has older generation schematics that still used FireWire, and they're horribly out of date. But I managed to talk to a bunch of people and get together a bunch of stuff and map out exactly what the dock connector looks like now. And there's a lot of grounds you can get rid of. There's a lot of old interconnects like composite and component video. There's line in, line out for both left and right channel. There's 2 serial ports, serial in and serial out. And if Apple wants to, they could theoretically go down to 4 pins for USB, the 2 directions for data, a ground, and a power pin. And they could put both 3.5 and 5 volts on that power pin. And then 4 for HDMI. Which would be the 2 video pins and the 2 clock pins. And they could do the USB ground at the same time. So 8 pins sounds like the least. The 9th pin, maybe that's Apple's proprietary accessory pin that detects what kind of accessory is plugged into it and maintains their hardware licensing program. But it sounds doable. You'll just be giving up all the old stuff, all the old line in, all the old serial, which is used for scientific equipment, all the old video connectors that you used to plug into your ancient television sets.
Is there anything that people might really be upset over losing, though?
I want to be able to plug it into my RCA jacks. Why does Apple hate me? Apple's always been ruthless about embracing the future. They have a MagSafe 2 on the Retina MacBook. They've got Thunderbolt instead of other connections on this on the computers now. They got rid of the floppy drive. They're getting rid of optical drives. So people will be pissed. Some of their accessories won't work. There will be an adapter, but the adapter, I'm guessing, won't split out signals. So it won't take HDMI and give you... maybe there'll be more expensive ones that take HDMI and give you composite or component. And maybe they take USB and break out serial. But in general, it's going to just simplify things, I think. And the other thing is, like, we're using AirPlay and Wi-Fi sync now. We don't need to do everything over a hard line anymore.
I still like to.
Jack into the matrix.
I still sync my phone through my wired dock every day at my
What?
desk. Yeah.
Really? I haven't synced my phone since iCloud launched.
Yeah, because when I get to work, I plug in my laptop to Ethernet, which is another reason why I'm hesitant to switch away to something that needs the, USB adapter, because it's problematic for me. And when I do that, my laptop is set up to turn Wi-Fi off, so Wi-Fi sync is useless to me.
It's like I don't even know you anymore.
Yeah, I know.
You are Battlestar Galactica. You've got like no way for the Cylons to wirelessly hack into your network.
Yeah, I'm careful.
I don't think Georgia synced her phone in the last 4 years, even before iCloud came out.
I only do it like once a week, and now at best with iCloud.
After busting my phone though, I'm thinking maybe I should sync every once in a blue moon. So I think I've synced it once.
The only time I have to sync is when someone sends me a beta that doesn't use test flight or hockey, and then I get very sad and I have to sync something across, and it screws up all my applications, and I get very angry.
Yeah, it really is more trouble than it's worth at this point.
Yeah.
Rene, you also went into Siri. Siri OS. Could natural language be Apple's next big leap forward? Now, Rene, you mean natural as in the way that I'm speaking to you just now?
The way that Scotty spoke to computer, the way that Michael Knight spoke to Kit, the way that Hal murderously spoke to his entire crew. I think that one of the things that we were talking about is that every great leap forward in computing has come with a paradigm shift in user interface. So the command line interface is when the Apple II brought regular computing to normal people for the first time. And then the Mac mainstreamed the graphical user interface. And the iPhone mainstreamed, they took all the cool Minority Report stuff and put multi-touch in the hands of 100 million people. And Apple is always looking at what's next. And I heard Scott Forstall talking. Seth and I were actually at the keynote for WWDC, and Scott Forstall was showing off the new Siri stuff. And he said, look, you can watch the trailer in Siri, as though Siri was like almost something separate from iOS. And I started thinking, maybe Siri is like the Lisa or the Apple One of whatever Apple's going to do next, the natural language device where you just talk. Because Siri, obviously, it's not a great user experience right now, but 2 years from now, 3 years from now, imagine all the people that could use a computer that still can't use even a multi-touch computer because it's either that even that is not as accessible as they need it to be.
Is there any way that they could do that without making Siri take up making the phone dual core and Siri takes up a whole core? Because it's the waiting time in between kills me every time.
Well, Google's putting
kills me.
In Android 4.1 Jelly Bean, Google has put a lot of the parsing on the device, so you don't have to go to the server anymore. And Google Now, which is the other interesting thing, is Google Now is not just like Siri. Siri takes your language, parses it, and then understands context. Google Now tries to predict what you're going to do. Like, Georgia, you're still at home. You have a meeting in 10 minutes. The traffic means that you'll never get there. Would you like to send an email and tell these people that you're going to be late? And by the way, here's the best way for you to get there. Because your phone knows all these things.
Yet I love that.
Well, I don't have it turned on because you have to enable Google Web History, and the last thing I want to do is give Google my web history. So yeah, I don't use it. But I mean, it is one of the things. Maybe Apple wouldn't care about your web history when they implement that. And I think we still haven't seen it. Like they showed. I didn't think Apple would show any Siri stuff at WWDC. I thought they would save Siri improvements for the big show, the new iPhone reveal. And maybe they are. Maybe there's still some Siri stuff we haven't seen yet that they're going to show off at the iPhone event, because God knows Santa Claus needs a new TV commercial, and it can't just be better 3D maps to get Rudolph, in the sleigh through the night. So maybe it's this year, maybe it's next year, but I think Apple is going to keep working at Siri, and maybe that's going to be the next thing.
Yeah, I'm hoping for Siri, but
I want to hear Seth's take. He's a UI guy, Seth. Because you imagine you could have a computer without a display at all. Like remember the ill-fated iPod Shuffle with no buttons?
Yeah. I don't think they'll go that far, but I do agree that natural language is kind of where everything is headed. I feel like it's the next big interface hurdle for computer and software manufacturers to overcome. And I think that it's, as you said, it's the thing that will, all right, let me dial back 1 second. Apple, bless you. Apple has, for the duration of their tenure as a hardware and software manufacturer, always tread the line of democratizing computing for everybody. Even as far back as the Apple One, which was super, super nerdy, it was still less nerdy than the alternative. And as we've seen, everything has gotten closer to that midpoint of everyone can be a computer user. So I think that as part of that march forward, natural language processing has to be integral in that. And I think, to George's point, how are you going to do that if Siri's response times are really lousy? I think it has to come on device, and Google is starting to do it. And I think that the only way it's going to happen and be natural and be fluid and be the way that we want it to be is for the computing power to be on the device and have to minimize server calls, because I don't know with the variations in people's different connections, whether it's Wi-Fi, strong cellular, weak cellular, whatever. I don't know how you can mitigate the problems that will cause with Siri always phoning home to get the data. I think it has to come more localized, but maybe the data gets updated. There's like a set of instructions that is constantly pulled whenever the device is dormant. The way that iCloud will back up your device every night when you plug it in on Wi-Fi. Maybe
we heard that rumor at WWDC, right? That Apple was working on, when they first heard about the podcast app, that Apple was going to use almost like Power Nap and just in the background download maps and other local predictive information.
Right, and I think that's putting language processing packages into those kinds of that kind of Power Nap download while you're not doing anything. I think that's probably how it's going to happen, because they're not going to update firmware every other day, and they're not going to ask people to physically do anything. It's going to have to be done passively. But I don't think it can be done any other way. I don't think you can do Siri the way it's being done now, always calling a server and then returning results and have it be any better experience until, everybody's on an LTE-like connection. And let's be honest, that's not going to happen anytime soon.
It will as soon as you move to Verizon, sir.
Oh, come on. I have no delusions of grandeur about this. I know I'm going to have problems there, too. I just am ready for different problems.
Yeah, I don't know, Georgia, you've worked with people who've had trouble with technology before. Do you think that just being able to talk to your computer, if it's reliable, it would be a big step forward?
I think that as long as Siri is able to meet up with the demand and not abandon them or leave them hanging, waiting for an answer, I think that it could work. Siri has, and the people that are developing Siri have a lot of things to have to deal with, though. One is that language, there aren't actually spaces in between words. We hear them as spaces, but if you took a graph of natural language, there actually isn't any space as I'm speaking. There's always a sound coming after the last one. So in order to change difference in syntax and people that speak, say, Canadian in comparison to American, especially someone that might be older or have a lisp or have different issues, that's going to be really difficult, because if you have to learn how to speak to Siri, it's frustrating. And people that are already dealing with a lot of things, or that are stressed or anxious or have a certain disability.
Are you asking Seth how it handles New Jersey English? Is that your nice way of doing it?
No. I just want Siri to be able to...
Well, no, because we get complaints. We get people who write in, I use Siri in Tennessee, or I use Siri in this part of England, and it doesn't understand me, but understands the person who uses it in the other town.
It has to be again, I would say like 95% of the time, it has to understand what you're going to do, or you're not going to choose to use it. The same reason that I talk about natural consequences with children. You have to be on par all the time. If not, you're just going to be frustrated. And that's what happened with Siri. That's why I will choose not to use Siri. Siri actually turns on by mistake, and I'm upset. Because she also beeps. I'm like, stop beeping. I don't want you to beep.
Well, that's why I think it's a layer right now. It's almost like, how Aqua sits on top of Terminal on macOS, and now they have Launchpad on top of that. It's just something that you can use now, but I think as it gets better and as the technology improves, it'll become more and more of a primary interface.
Right.
In some ways, it's faster. Like we talked about it before. Adding a reminder in iOS is incredibly tedious. Adding it with Siri is super fast.
Yeah.
It's great as long as it adds the reminder to the proper place and for what you need.
I can barely do that by typing, Georgia.
I know, but if it doesn't, then you have to go in and fix it.
Yeah.
And that's just as frustrating.
And it's making us all talk in very short, almost, what's his name? The guy from the commercial.
Oh,
John Malkovich. Kind of one word, meaning of life. Kind of enunciation.
It's funny that you mention how difficult it is to add reminders, because I feel like at this point with iOS especially, they're at a kind of a junction where they want to keep adding things to enhance the operating system, but they can't, they struggle with doing it simply and doing it simple enough for everyone. Like, I feel like Siri and voice recognition and that stuff is the way that they have to keep going, because it's so hard to add a single reminder because it just is unintuitive and there's too many taps and it's not really great and easy, but you can do it really easily with Siri and your voice. But reminders as an app itself is one of the most simple things in the operating system that you could even point to. So I feel like to do the kinds of things they want to do and keep pushing the platform forward, yet keep it simple for everybody, I think that's where the voice stuff comes in, and they just expect that people are going to gravitate towards that because it's just going to be easier by default eventually, if it's not right now.
I hope so.
I have to make sure we get this in. I know Georgia's probably trying to extend this part of the show so she can get out of the part that she's been teasing, but you asked the iMore Nation, Georgia. You started all this. You asked them. Well, you were asked. In all fairness, someone asked you what the best app you ever bought were, and instead of answering it outright, you decided to conscript the entire iMore Nation and ask them what the best app they ever bought was. What's going on with that?
Well, so I'm going to ask Seth, what's the best app that you ever bought?
Best app I've ever bought, hands down, is 1Password. Hands down.
That's a good one.
There are a handful of things that I've been using since I came to iOS. That is one of them that is never, ever not on my devices. That is one that is worth every penny and has completely changed the way I live my life with technology. There are like a handful of others, like Instapaper, that are extremely enjoyable and things like that, but no single app has been more valuable to me, both, emotionally and professionally and monetarily than that one.
It's your iOS blankie.
Yeah, I guess it is.
Some warm, fuzzy thoughts. So, Rene, what about you?
I'm very similar to Seth in that I always do the same things. I put on Dropbox and then I put on 1Password because the only reason I do it in that order is because my 1Password library lives in Dropbox.
Yeah.
And that lets me have all my passwords right away on a new device. It means that I can use gnarly long passwords without having to remember them. And it has become like walking. I just expect it to be there all the time. I actually wasn't going to answer that because I didn't even think about it, because for me, it's basically part of the system now. But that's a very apt answer, Seth. Another one that I use all the time is Tweetbot, which sounds silly, but because of the work I do, Twitter is like a constant water cooler / peer network / communications tool. And Tweetbot's only a couple bucks, and I use it almost as much as email at this point.
Oh, yeah. I would agree with that. So what's yours?
Right. Mine is Byte SMS. Every time it comes up and I'm doing something and I need to answer, I think, thank God I can just reply. That's actually what I think. I'm like, thank you. Thank you that I can just...
Wait, it's not Field Runners?
Oof. Field Runners, it would be a great second. I love Field Runners 2. Field Runners 2, love that game.
I understand, though. You like Byte SMS because you can answer while you're playing Field Runners.
I'm not even kidding. I can not worry that any of my clients cannot reach me, and I can just enjoy Field Runners. And I will say what I will do is that I'll be playing Field Runners, and if someone's like, they'll be like, they're late, and they can just text me, and I know to get to them, and I can enjoy my Field Runners without having to move. It's true. But I actually think to myself every time it pops up, like, yay, I can just reply and keep on playing.
Nice.
Field Runners.
Did we have any good answers? Did anyone else in the... Because there were some interesting ones. Scotty T14 said Air Video, and I used to live on Air Video. Before OS 10 Lion, it just included AirPlay because I would use Air Video on iOS to stream stuff from my Mac to my Apple TV, but now I can stream it directly. I still use Air Video though because Mountain Lion's got a huge problem with Air Video. It only does Air Video sharing. Like it only on that's not true. In Apple apps you can do this, but on the iPad and iPhone, pretty much now you can hit AirPlay and stream apps and then go use something else while you're streaming them. Well, on Mountain Lion, you can do that with iTunes, but with most stuff, you have to share the whole screen, and then you can't work while you're beaming. So Air Video is also very good.
The other ones that were exceptionally popular was Navigon.
Yeah.
Which I also use and I enjoy. Camera Plus. Rene, didn't you used to use Camera Plus?
I still do. I mean, it's nice. The other stuff is like if I couldn't use Camera Plus for a few days, I could live with the camera. I think like 1Password, I would be non-functional.
Someone said, which was one of my favorites, is Georgia, I'm surprised, this was Pete44, that no one's mentioned Shazam. I use Shazam all the time, but it's actually free. So
you can get a paid version if you want, but yeah.
You could. I love Shazam. I use Shazam all the time. One of my favorite things was listening to a great song that I had no clue what it was on a TV show and being able to just click up and yeah.
KCH50428 says, I blacklist. Another jailbreak app. He uses it to stop all sorts of junk phone calls and SMSs from getting to him. I guess if you get a lot of those, then it's really valuable.
Yes, for sure.
A ton of tweetbots in here. Wow, like a lot of tweetbots in here. Sock Roller from the chat room says Angry Birds.
It's, interestingly enough, not one of my favorite games. I'll play it, but it wasn't one of my favorite games. Is that a horrible thing for me to say? Don't send me hate.
You can send Georgia hate mail.
And, of course, a couple said iMore app. Thank you.
Oh, of course. I should have said that, damn it. No, you can't. That's free. Sorry, we made it very clear you couldn't vote for free apps. It had to be something that was worth the cold, hard cash you might have otherwise spent on a tiny McDonald's burger or a small cup of coffee.
Exactly.
All right. Anything else for me, Georgia? Anything else, Seth?
I'm good.
That is all I have for you today, Rene.
So where can we find out more about you?
You can find me on Twitter. I'm there every once in a while at GeorgiaTIPB and also on the website.
And you've started a new podcast, correct? Tell me about it.
I'm doing a podcast on parenting. So we're going to go through the things to help you become a better parent and survive parenthood.
To improve the quality of your life and your children's life.
Definitely. And it sometimes does seem like a lot of work to do things in a way that will help your kids, but better to do them now than wait.
So wait till you're on Dr. Phil in the future.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Go to Georgia now so you don't have to deal with, even a pancake's got two sides. That dog don't hunt.
So if you have any parenting
That's your future if you don't listen to Georgia.
If you have any questions, you can actually send them to me and we might bring them up on the show.
Podcast at zenandtech.tv, or you can just at zenandtech.tv on Twitter.
Right.
Seth Clifford, sir.
Seth Clifford on Twitter. You can check me out here and on Iterate with Rene and Mark of Bajango. And if you want to see the work we do, nickelfish.com.
Nice. And you can find me at Rene Ritchie. You can find me at iMore.com. You can find all of us at iMore. You can email us at podcast@imore.com or just leave a comment on the show when it goes live on the blog. And we're going to be doing a lot more reading of comments. Maybe we'll do some voice comments in the near future. We want to get much more communal with you. So check that out. Do send us your feedback. For all of our shows, go to mobilenations.com/shows. And Georgia, Seth, chat room, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, chat room.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Good looking chat room we have.
Very handsome.
Handsome chat rooms.
Yeah, Seth and you have similar hair today.
Yeah, Seth's he's got, I don't know, a rounder look on his hair. Mine looks pointier today.
All right.
I think.
So, all right.
All right, whatever.
Seth's also got the Steve Jobs beard.
Yeah, scruff.
Yeah. Whew. All right. Well, my heat is making me absolutely die here, so I'm going to love and leave the chat room. Yeah, I don't want to die.
Don't die.
It's messy. To die from heat is messy.
Not for you.
Have a good night, everybody. We love you, chat room. We'll be back next week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
See you guys.